You're about to hear from brothers Eric and Jack as they exchange ideas and learn from the most calculated real estate entrepreneurs in the business today. This is Tangible Assets, the new rules of real estate.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tangible Assets. This is episode 4. Today we are here with Steve Gerten. Steve, you want to say hello to the audience?
Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Doing good.
How's my voice sound?
Sounds pretty good. I'd say.
Sultry.
Yeah. So Steve, give us a quick background for the people who don't know you, kind of what you're up to right now.
Yeah. So I've been a full-time real estate agent for about 4 years now. Mm-hmm. Got into real estate. I come from the corporate world, was at Target Corporate. Was actually, if you remember those coupon machines, when you check out, they're no longer there, hence why I am no longer there. Those little coupons that you just chuck in your bag. I was behind in designing those programs. I read, kind of the similar trajectory to about 95% of people read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. That led to part-time, getting more and more into real estate and doing my due diligence and, analysis paralysis of properties. And then eventually that led to buying our first couple rental properties. And that's what got us into the game. So my wife and I started doing that part-time. Eventually that led to...
Let me ask, what year did you buy your first rental property?
2016.
Okay.
2016.
Okay.
So we bought our first then, and that led to eventually realizing how much money we were paying to agents, and eventually part-time at night.
Agents.
I know. God. And then I became one, right? And that led to part-time at night, nights and weekends, getting my license, doing the online Kaplan courses.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually hit a critical mass where it's funny, and I'm sure you guys went through the same thing when you're starting to invest in real estate. I mean, real estate's that topic that everybody likes to talk about when you're out with friends and family. And so one thing led to another, and eventually when I got my license, built up a little pipeline of clientele. Mm-hmm. And was helping those folks buy their first, second investment properties. That led to some single family deals, and then eventually tapered off of the Target gig, cut cold turkey after that, and away we went and started running.
How long were you doing both of these things at once?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
A year and a half, and I had really great mentors in my life that eventually, you read the right books, you kind of want to get out of that E quadrant of or what quadrant am I in? The employee quadrant, right?
Yep.
Where, you're trading time for money. And, I was making a good chunk of change, but it really wasn't the wealth building that I knew that we wanted and the lifestyle that we wanted. So eventually it was, dive in. And I'm always the type that I just go all in every single time. I'm not as calculated as maybe others within even this room of I figure it out as I go. I surround myself with people that are a lot smarter than myself. So I joined a team that, the guy leading the team was an expert. They did fix and flips, the BRRRR strategy, learned a lot there. And so you continue to absorb and you just show up. And if you show up every day, it just, you're bound to figure it out. Still haven't figured it out yet, but I mean, every day it's exciting when you wake up and you're just like, what am I going to learn today and what's next?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I think you're making some assumptions about calculated investors. I like to see myself as that, but in reality, when I look back at purchases, it's usually I buy something and that morning I didn't know that I was actually going to buy something. Deals come up and you jump on them, right?
Yeah.
It's opportunity. But so interesting. So you kind of have corporate, retail, sounds like kind of technology from that background.
Well,
and I know you've spun that off to do some pretty interesting things tied in with real estate. So how did that all mesh together?
I mean, I look at just when you're in real estate in general, I mean, there's so much. I try to come up with something that's more rare and valuable. You're in this investor space. There's 35, 40 different people that you can go to. And we looked at our big, as we were doing our market analysis, was simply look at Facebook. I mean, people are asking these questions of where do I collect rent? How do I find a property manager? How do I manage revenue and expenses? All those questions come up. And with the business background, it's we're all buying these little mini businesses, right? These properties, or some of them are pretty large.
Yeah.
But we don't run them we don't all run them in a systematized way. We're all running them in our own way. And then eventually when you always, when you're an entrepreneur, you start with the end in mind. So eventually you're going to sell these properties, right? And maybe, upgrade 1031, whatever. But nobody really thinks about that exit, and there's no systematized way of doing it. So that's where we wanted to build a platform that folks in the Twin Cities, and as we continue to scale, can use. And we basically said, plug into the system, and when you're ready to sell or when you're ready to buy your next, there's just a quick export and away you go, and you have all the data, analytics behind it, expenditures, all that fun stuff, and you're able to go. And so we wanted to, nobody's doing that, so we figured let's go there. We still really haven't fully figured it out. We're learning, but that's the joy and when we're meeting with all the investors out in the community. I mean, we're basically crowdsourcing what we're building. It's what do you need? And we're going to build it to suit. And that's
so
what
now
we're
you're
doing.
Talking your latest project, Zenlord Pro.
Yep, the software. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Obviously investing, got my feet wet a little bit in like how to manage a property. But if you ask 10 different people, they all manage it differently, which I hate.
Yeah.
Because I could ask you, how do you manage your properties? I could go talk to a couple other investors. Maybe you own 1 to 5 and you manage completely different than somebody who owns 6 to 20. But they should be the same, around the same way. And so that's where we decided, let's start building a software product that can now be given to the general public, and they can plug into it and make it seamless and free, and away they go.
Okay, I'll be honest. Like, creating a property management software platform is a daunting task.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of really well-developed programs out there for, a lot of them are built for the larger managers. There's Cozy and, stuff for the smaller ones. What made you think that you could succeed in such a daunting task? I mean, holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, we're not, the joy of what we're doing is like, we're not succeeding yet. I mean, we have a number of users that
you're improving.
We're improving upon it, right?
Step by step.
Yeah. And it's a platform, and like, to be very transparent, I am not building this. I am not developing. And that's why you go to the networking groups and you meet different people. And so I was really the fourth piece in the entire product. So Zenlord Pro was already an idea that was in its infancy when we all got together. Mm-hmm. Basically college buddies, friends of friends. He had built a similar product for a local property management company, locally in-house product that they used to operate their business.
Wow.
And so that's where the idea was born of, why not take this idea? We know that everybody out there on Facebook is the DIY manager, right? Like, that's the millennial mindset of like, I'm going to do it all on my own.
Absolutely.
And everybody's out there rogue of like, I'm on QuickBooks. I do it all through an Excel spreadsheet, and I got these really cool pivot tables. And like, I love Excel, but I can tell you, like, a lot of folks, when they're doing their due diligence, don't want to dive into somebody's Excel spreadsheet. They'd rather want some system behind it to say, where's this data coming from? Show me the 3 years of rental history, right? The expenditures. How much money have you actually put into this? Because I can say I replaced my water heater 3 years ago, but did you? Did you actually do that? And if it's all through a system, I mean, we live in an on-demand world, and so everything else is systematized. Back to kind of the corporate world, it's like Amazon's doing it, and I'm not comparing what we're doing to Amazon.
You're pretty much Amazon in the
We're
market.
Amazon, yes. But it was just an opportunity that we're going down that path of like, we're going to continue to build this baby out, and it's going to save people a ton of time. It's going to make them more profitable. And if we're all more profitable, we can buy more property. And that's the sweet spot.
That's right. And then the one thing that I remember from our last conversation a while ago was that not just a property management platform, it also had a network of local vendors. Is that still, are you still building that out?
Yeah.
Because that is super valuable. Like, everyone is like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do if my toilet's clogged. It's like, okay, well, it gets more complex than that.
And guys like yourself and people that are in the industry, you already have your guys, right? The people that you're sending your business out to, but there's an underserved market of those folks that, I mean, we help folks buy their first duplex, triplex, and they get into these properties and then they're tabbing their realtor. And that's kind of why we do it, is you want to create stickiness as an agent. You kind of incubate those clients, but now we're saying, hey, put those plumbers, put those painters, put those carpet installers, those cleaners onto this system, and they're plugged in kind of like a thumbtack, or they're kind of like a home advisor, but they're not paying, our vendors. It's all free for them. We don't charge them until they actually connect with a client and invoice for those jobs. It works like Uber, right? So Uber those drivers are only getting paid when they drop you off. I think.
We're not putting my vendors on there.
Yeah. and that's busy. And that's always something, right? And you can privatize them, and we know, but for the vendors that are getting started, and that's another thing that's problematic in the real estate market right now is trades. Like, it's incredibly expensive to find some new folks. So you are gatekeeping a lot of your people. And so we're still trying to figure out, and this is something we didn't forecast or anticipate, was like, we're going out to the trade schools and educating folks that are at the tech schools and saying, hey, do you want to start your own business? Plug into our network. We have X number of properties on here. If you're a good plumber, you can plug right in and you're getting free business all day long and you're golden. And now those people are taken care of. All of this takes place in our ecosystem within our software. And so when you pay your invoice, it's now stored at the unit level. So at the end of the day, when you're doing your taxes, when you're selling your property, wow, I had a clogged drain 3 years ago and I had to pay $500. That's data that not many people are tracking right now. Or if you have a really, really good system, but a lot of folks aren't at that level yet where they're still using their dang spreadsheets or whatever they're using. I mean, it's again, wild, wild west out there. So we're really, again, it's a process, it's a system, and we're trying to make it very, very simple. And, we're still working on it. It's really cool.
Every system, you have quirks, you have kinks, and you have things that you don't expect. So, Steve, share with us a story. You got any funny management stories or experiences or things that I'm surprised every day in this industry, and there's so many crazy things that I'm just like, never seen that happen, and I'm done saying that because it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
Share with our listeners some funny or odd stories that you've seen out there.
Man, well, for us, I mean, we don't know. I mean, some of your folks, they own a number of properties. They probably have a little bit more scale to what they can speak to. I mean, for us, we had a tenant bring in their own pests and to try to get out of their lease. So they brought mice into the apartment, released them into their own freaking apartment. And we have cameras in our place. And so we reviewed the cameras and, we basically had to have a discussion with them like, you're paying for that. And no, you're not getting out of your lease. And so we went through, we spent a good chunk of change just getting all of those MFers out of the building. It's a 6-plex. So they put them in one unit and now they start seeping down into other areas, but it was like so simple where you could see her with it, like the actual mice, and then releasing them. And it's like we didn't know how the number. It was like 5, but those things multiply, and who knows?
But week from today, you could have 100.
But we've been generally blessed of having really good quality tenants. I mean, we really haven't had a ton. I don't have a lot of the, you told me one before we got started where a guy put gasoline all around the dang building, lit it on fire like it's some seance or something. Like, I would love to be there.
All I can tell you is anyone that was just on the fence about buying their first investment property and listen to this, just jumped off. Not going to deal with that. Wow, that is, I have never heard of that before.
No. And hopefully we don't have to deal with it again. But that's like one of those, I'm
pretty sure you won't.
It's not all collecting those checks. You have to deal with the mess from time to time. And then you just it is shocking of again, coming from the corporate world where you're dealing with people who are, per your last email, if you could, and it's so buttoned up so where folks are very, please see below, and I hated that. So then you get into the world of working directly with people, and you're like, there are some a-holes in this world, and there are some weirdos, and you're like, where do they come from? How do they get to this point? And why is it happening to me? And it's
they come from Craigslist ads.
Basically, yeah, we'll just play. It's probably Craigslist's fault. It's Craig. We'll just deal with that. So, yeah.
Okay, let me ask a practical tip. for a lot of the people who are listening and are looking to get into their first or second deal, let's say. I know you say you don't like talking about a whole lot of management stuff because you consider yourself to be a pro, but like what are some practical steps on how someone, you know, buying their first deal can find great tenants? Like where do you post, you know, what are things that you would screen for or look for, red flags?
Well, I'm interested now. Like now, you guys saw Zillow is now charging a weekly cost of $10. Have you guys seen that? Which I'm wondering what the ripple effect will be of that, because now you're charging consumers, and that's where we would always get our tenants and the most high quality tenants.
Oh, they're charging the people using the
post
platform?
the ad.
Okay, yes.
Yep, to post your ad, you're going to be charged $10 a week. And it's interesting that they're doing that. I'm curious as to how that'll affect us in finding new tenants, because that's where we would historically find the best tenants. Facebook Marketplace, you kind of get the people that are button clickers, and you get, is this still available? Is this still available? Is it right? But in terms of getting like high quality tenants, that's the point of networking in general. Like get out and meet as many different people as you can. Our community here locally is incredible. So like if we ever have a vacancy, we'll post it out on Facebook. We'll post it out on like our own Facebook page, or we'll go out and post it on like the Millennial Investor Focus Group, which is huge. And you have a lot of like property managers or people that you may have shaken a hand of, and they are more than happy to connect you with maybe a past tenant that they had, to connect and bridge the gap there. We've had really good success with that, building up your own brand. You know, you starting to see this with little mini teams. And I don't know if you guys do this, where kind of create your own little incubator of even past tenants of yourself, treat them really well, connect them with new properties. How do you create, again, that ecosystem of like trading tenants that are high quality, paying rent on time, and aren't going to be pains in the butt in general. That's been, for us, it's been helpful to kind of go that route and just meet as many dang people as you can. Have a database, so get a good CRM system and tag them appropriately. So every time we have an upcoming vacancy 3 months out, I just send a blast out to everybody and say, we have a unit down in, most of ours are down in the Hiawatha neighborhood, right by the light rail system, by the VA Medical Center. So I'll just ping, 40, 50 people, and 95% of the time I get at least a response to say, yep, I know someone. And we bring them in, and that keeps us from having to drive out to the property multiple times. We kind of have we get that nice referral, and so we feel good, and it's a warm introduction, and now we feel, even with the application, that's just kind of one step, but we don't even really need to review that if we know somebody else's name is on the line when they refer them to us. So that's how we've done it. That's our system.
Dang, I've actually never heard of that before. I'm using Facebook as a tool like that. The marketplace, I go there all the time for buying random little stuff, and it's great. It's so much better than Craigslist or anything, because you know they're real people. And they have a history. And plus, I've never considered using like the database of past tenants to for cross.
Yeah, like and it doesn't work every time, but it's a
good start.
Yeah, and we like to go that route, because you get. It's better to know or have like somebody that may have rented from somebody else, and they're like, yep, had a really great experience, but maybe their job changed and they're moving into the neighborhood. All of our people, and this is specific to our portfolio, but if you are setting up grounds in a certain geography, like why not reach out to the local businesses and see who they have, because they're hiring and firing all the time. We feed off of all of our tenants, our VA Medical Center, and pilots and flight attendants. And maybe once in a while, people that are at the Mall of America, because we're right on the light rail. So, and that's specific to ours, but know your geography and cater appropriately. Like spend a little bit of money, like advertise your units, because, you're okay maybe spending $100 on an ad versus, just putting something up for free on Craigslist or Facebook, and now you get a really you have a crummy tenant, or maybe you have a longer vacancy. Not to say that that's bad, but the ads can also be effective as well.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen with Zillow now that they're charging? Do you think there's going to be a lot of people that don't go there to post their ads? Is it going? It's kind of been the go-to place for a while now.
Well, it's shocking how how cheap a lot of landlords are, right? Like $10. It seems like you're not going to pay that. You're going to go find alternatives. Maybe you'll go to the Facebooks and do that. I don't know exactly and I literally just saw the email about a week ago, and I haven't dove into it because we don't have a vacancy right now. But I wonder what the play is like. They're monetizing that. Maybe they looked at that as people were posting for free, and they weren't seeing the applications, which I know they rolled that out. So they're building their own ecosystem as well within Zillow. I mean, that's the 800-pound gorilla. Is a lot of folks view them as the bad guy, but I don't mind them whatsoever. They're increasing and providing more visibility and eyes on in the real estate market, which is great. It just increases frequency.
So a question, is this for just Zillow or Zillow Group? Because Zillow Group owns multiple platforms.
Yeah, Zillow Group.
All
Okay.
Zillow Group
so like Hot Pads.
Zillow,
and
Trulia, Hot Pads.
Yep.
Ooh, bummer.
Yeah.
So it'd be, with your properties, how do you, when you advertise, what's your go-to? What's your strategy with your units that you're doing, Jack?
Yeah, so I use a management software called Buildium.
Buildium. That's not,
Buildium?
is not Zenlord Pro? Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. So I've been rocking on Buildium for a while now, and when we create a posting, it syndicates out to Zillow Group. So this is funny. I got a call with my Zillow rep at 2:30 today, so he was probably gonna share that bad news with me anyways.
Yeah.
I wonder how he's gonna spin it.
Yeah.
How's he gonna say, "Hey, I got some great news for you. We're gonna eliminate a lot of your competition."
Well, if with that money they're advertising to tenants more and building that, that rent section is far lower on the totem pole for their buy sell, right? That's what they advertise. But if they're going to use that money to increase the traffic to the rental side, then by all means do it.
It might prevent the people who just leave their post up, after it's rented. There's some
just
pain
to pull it. Yeah.
That might be it.
So that everybody reaching out will know that it's an available rental. Yeah, that makes sense. But no, like I was saying, we post to Zillow Group, apartments.com, apartments list, and then I also do post to Craigslist.
Nice.
We still get some leads through that for the smaller, like one-bed units, I feel like. And in different parts of town, the really high-end rentals, like Craigslist isn't great for, but,
Well, it's also like a demographic thing. Like I feel like the baby boomers are still heavy on Craigslist versus our age group is gravitating more towards Facebook and doing more of that medium. So not to say that they're bad. I'd be interesting. I've never pulled the metrics of like understanding, when you're posting those, where your applicants are coming from. That's stage one, but where are your actual tenants coming from? And I'm sure if you know that number, that's the gold mine.
Yeah. Let me ask, do you know anything about the new rental laws that are dropping in Minneapolis? I've been trying to get some insight on that. Maybe you aren't the person to ask.
I'm not the one to ask. So
okay. I know they're limiting what you can like screen people with, the criteria on which you can accept or deny an applicant. And there's some things with like criminal history that you can only look so far back and have a reason.
I looked at it very high level, but I know it's going to cause problems. People are going to find ways around what they're doing, and it's going to lead to maybe, I think isn't it income limits and credit limits, right? Something along that. Like, I think there's going to be a bigger problem
it's like things that help you find good tenants they're taking away, and that's like a serious bummer. We should do an episode just
unless you're Steve and all your tenants are just referrals, then you're maybe okay.
I gotta go shake some
hands. Again, we don't have the portfolios that some of these folks are, so we haven't gotten there yet. We're going to hopefully continue to grow what we're doing, but if I'm speaking to a specific audience, for those folks that are in that 2 to maybe 10 units, that referral network can work. But when you scale, of course, you're going to need to tap all of the resources that you have. The rules and regs, that stuff's always you're going to get backlash. They implemented this, right? Some of these changes to be more tenant friendly, but now you're going to see a lot more people. There's going to be ways that the landlords will always find a way to, go around the system and do what they're doing.
Yeah. Steve, tell us a little bit about, your vision with your portfolio. So where you're at today, how many properties and what do you see as your next steps? Because I feel like there's a lot of our clients out there that are maybe in a similar situation. They definitely don't have this grand vision for property management software like you're creating, but just on what you own as an owner.
For us, we always set a goal of at least one property a year. We're at least one, and we just had a baby 10 months ago. So that has replaced, that has replaced investment properties
for this year.
Yeah. Daycare is just a gut punch.
That's got to cost
fantastic.
at least 2 or 3 properties to raise a kid.
Yeah, it depends how your cash flow is. Yeah. But that's one of those where you have to budget for that. But for our overall, the way that we have built our portfolio is really interesting. I mean, we bought condos, and then we slowly bought the entire buildings in which these condos existed. And so we decondoized. I mean, it was a mess, but we learned how to do it, which was interesting. And so now we're looking into more commercial deals, things that are 6+ at least, keeping everything one roof, one boiler, the simple system.
Say six units plus, or
yeah, ideally.
Okay.
But finding those deals is going to become more difficult. And with the new rules and regs for your audience, that's anywhere from the 1 to 4 units, right? A big component was off market and the value that, us agents that are actually in the market every single day, procuring buyers and sellers in our own database. That's going away, which is a problem. You can't market things that are 1 to 4 units. So I'm focusing our attention on that 5+ units, because you can go and find, somebody that's holding that off market. And that speaks to, again, the networking and building the system that we're building is not only the management, but if you have 500, 1,000 properties, 1,500, and now you're in the Twin Cities, St. Cloud, Rochester, Duluth. Now you're really creating this incubator of, again, all the data, information's flowing. And if I'm a buyer, I can put that in my profile, like a Bigger Pockets, put that in my profile. I'm looking for X type of a property with maybe an NOI number or cap rate of whatever. And a seller might be looking at offloading one of those properties, and now we connect them. And that's where we feel we can get to with what we're creating. And it's all, again, that system versus a Facebook group or something along those lines where folks aren't as willing to raise their hand. We're going to be able to connect the dots there. As far as our own portfolio, I don't know yet, which isn't a good strategy, but the relationships we've been building, we're in the infancy of some syndications where they're smaller deals, but you meet this investor community and they get really fired up of like investing, but they don't have the cash. Well, we can combine 4 or 5 different of the folks attending our events or attending yours, right? And put them in one bucket, create a little LLC, and let's go buy your first and let's go buy your second and third. So we're starting to dip our toes into that, as we'll get a little bit of a piece. So it takes a lot more deals, but we're not having as much skin in the game, and we're bringing the value. So instead of cash, our value to the transaction is that database, and also being a licensed agent, we can broker that deal and bake our commissions into the funding, basically. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have done that with what you've worked on. I don't know a lot about your portfolio.
No, we've had interesting guests on the podcast who do the syndication deals, and it's super interesting.
Well, I saw you had Todd Dexon, right? Yeah. I have a guy on my team who's going through his class right now. It's fascinating.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't listened to the episode, but what's that?
Come on.
You're using Bill Diem still.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Jack, we're moving to Zenlord Pro. If that means we can have some access.
You heard it here.
5+ units.
And some vendors.
Some off market.
Yeah. No, that's real.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question.
Yes.
If you're looking for on-market commercial deals, where are you looking?
Ooh.
And what kind of...
Should I tell you?
Yeah, tell me.
I have to tell you this? Commercial deals. So, again, there's not a specific geography, and I don't think you should, but St. Cloud is kind of fascinating to me, as they are, most of their buildings are burning down. So if you see that, now that was a joke, but they had a bar that burned down. But St. Cloud's an interesting market where, again, the numbers... the cap rate numbers up there are a little bit more appealing. Yep. But again, not to say I love the Twin Cities, and even though it doesn't feel like a deal, I'm interested in going anywhere and everywhere. But as long as I'm not part of that deal and I'm having to drive out to the property. So it's all about how we've put the deal together, like who's actively managing it. I don't think there's a specific geography. That's, it's a focus. I know some folks are, as I'm out talking, the casinos are an interesting play where folks are now focused on down in Shakopee or down in towards Canterbury and Mystic Lake. I've heard and multiple conversations of folks going there because the short-term rental market is appealing and they're able to drive those numbers up a little bit. So yeah, kind of an interesting little spot, but you have your stereotypical, uptown, or you're going to Northeast, but some of those are tough to, at this point, they've kind of reached their top limits there. I mentioned that our properties are down on the light rails. So knowing that the light rail is expanding westward, St. Louis Park, Hopkins, Eden Prairie, and the connectivity to larger companies is appealing as well. So if you can find something in there, but a savvy investor isn't getting rid of that property now because things are about to appreciate quite quickly, I think.
Yeah. And if you're a regular person, let's say not a realtor, that'd be a regular person.
Yes.
What websites would one use to find some commercial deals? Is it like LoopNet? Or
I think LoopNet, right? You probably know that.
CoStar.
Those are obviously like the big names. Those are the 800-pound gorillas. It seems like really it comes down to what Steve was talking about before, though, some of those relationships with those commercial brokers that are in that space. And, the more specific you can get with what you want is how you can get connected up to the brokers that are doing those types of deals. And then if you come at them with a business plan of really what you're looking for and, size and specifics, they'll take you seriously. And if you have some kind of a track record, and then they'll take you seriously. If you just
so you don't go to the broker and say, I'm looking to buy anything.
I'm
looking
over
don't do that.
40 units.
Because the broker's going to
200
look at
units,
you and say,
like,
okay, cool.
I'm looking for a good deal.
Yeah, like that is the worst, right? Like I need to find a good deal. But you mentioned it. The business plan is huge. Like if you can coach prospects or like even the community out there, like put together an actual business plan and stick to it, like a crisp, clean one sheet of exactly what you're looking for, and go send that out to 25 different brokers, you will find stuff. That's brilliant. Like to actually have some thought behind, I just have a chunk of change and I want to put it into something that is a quote unquote good deal.
I met with an agent last week, and I would say he was really brilliant. So Ahmed, and he was saying, I invest a lot in North Minneapolis, and I invest in properties that are just in really kind of rough shape and he even, I think he mentioned the word, like, sometimes have fire damage or, things like that, where I can go in and really do a lot of value add. And I'm like, that's interesting. I just had that word picture in my mind. And 2 days ago, I get a call from a client. He's like, I have this rental property, and it has some fire damage, and I'm wondering, if you have any thoughts or can help me. And so I went and I drove by this property, and I should show you a picture, but the roof is literally gone. It's not some fire damage. It's burned down.
It's good marketing by your past client.
Yeah, and so it was interesting, and so I connected him up, and this other agent is actually able to help him out. But I would have never thought about that unless he was specific in saying, really what he's looking for. And there's so many people that are like, hey, I'm just looking for something that makes me a lot of money. And they're just so general. They don't want to pigeonhole themselves, but you can actually probably have more success in what you're finding if you at least have somewhat of a plan and put it together and then communicate very specifically. And it was great. And now, my past client, I got someone who can actually help him out. And this guy found probably a pretty decent deal.
And I'm always curious, like you have those conversations. What system do you have behind what you're doing to make sure that you remember? Because you're having 50, 100 different conversations with people, and they're throwing out like, I'm looking for a Airbnb on lakefront property within 80 miles of the Twin Cities, or I'm looking for this specific neighborhood. How do you track everything? How are you maintaining? Okay,
it's not
it's in your head.
Reliable.
Got it. Yeah.
He's not so reliable,
See, I'm as I age, I can't remember like what I had for breakfast. So, and when you're sleep deprived with a kid, it's like, I don't know how I even arrived here today. Like, where did I park? Luckily, I have the mobile app, so I can see the parking number. But I'm curious, like because you're having these conversations probably a lot more than I am. How do you guys kind of track everything and keep everything in line?
We have a database, but and that once you kind of reach a certain criteria, I would say we're good about that. But then there's also, like you said, just conversations where it's like, hey, I met this guy, had some coffee. I probably wouldn't put, criteria. He's just another agent. But since he gave me a very specific word picture of what he was looking for, like that stuck with me. And as soon as I heard that problem, I made the connections.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that was really weird is, this client, I sold one of his other properties that had fire damage, and then he fixed it. And then I realized yesterday that he referred me to someone else that had fire damage. And sold their house a few years ago, and I'm just now
You're
thinking,
the fire damage expert.
I know this guy only calls me with burned out proproperties, and maybe this is a niche.
Is he an arson, or
no,
is he burning these on purpose?
No, it's I think he got an insurance policy. It's probably worth. I think his house is probably worth like 150, 160. He said he got about 120,000 insurance money for it. So he's made almost whole, but I don't think this was a profitable venture for him. But
I'm writing right now. I took my notebook out and I'm writing down the business plan idea. I think that's, I mean, I don't know. We put one together, but I've never really coached others.
You just wrote down your own idea that you told us?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Steve, you're hilarious.
Steve, so you mentioned something earlier about the decondoizing a building. So it's super interesting because back in 2003, 2004, 2005, people were buying these 6 units and they were turning them into condos and then selling them individually. And
that's what they did with our building.
Yep. And that business plan started really falling apart when kind of everything started falling apart. I haven't seen a lot of people successfully do this. I recently just bought a property that has 2 condos, and I'm going to try to combine them myself. Maybe I'm stepping into something that I don't want to, but would love to.
You see my face.
Yeah. Would love to. How did that process go? Is there any opportunity for that, or is that a?
It can be. I mean, we found a building that. It was a 6-plex. So when we were going into buying our first, we looked at purchase price, and if we can get each unit around that same purchase price, we're all in for X number. What we didn't forecast was the cost of lawyers and getting rid of the association and some of the variables that get in there. People don't do it because eventually you own a certain percentage of the building that makes them non-warrantable by a lender. And so it really, we unknowingly hurt the other owners in the building. But we basically offered above market rate for all of the other units to make us not look like a-holes when we were buying the rest of the units. So what we would do is we would waive any listing charge to give them back that standard realtor commission that then got them to a number that everybody was comfortable with. So even though in year 1, 2, and 3, we may lose a little bit of cash on them, eventually like the gold is in the building itself. So it's a process that people don't do because it's expensive. Like it's not a 1 to even 10 year strategy. I mean, this is something that we're holding on to 30 years plus, if you need to. And that's because of the costs of decondoizing everything and the lawyer costs. And it was about 15 to 20 grand to do everything. So,
why is it so difficult to dissolve an association? Like why can't you just, what goes into that?
Not being a lawyer, I don't know exactly because my mindset wasn't quite along that line. So I don't know exactly why.
You were thinking like I'm thinking right now.
It was, the cost of the lawyers, and then just basically how you structure everything moving forward with, when you get to a certain percentage, it was a mess of how, we own 90% of the building. We had one seller left. And so we had to, basically have an exit plan for them and get us in there. But even as I did I still don't understand it. We went on the bigger pockets. If you go and put in like decondoizing, everybody's like red flag, red flag, red flag. Don't do it. It's expensive. And then we went and did it. And so it was just, someday they'll do a podcast about it and I'll have to read about it. But it was just, we did it out of necessity because we were thinking, okay, we own a couple. Do we sell? Well, now we're non-warrantable with our condos. That limits our buyer pool. So it was messy, but now that we're through it all, it's like it's awesome. Like
What
now we're happy
percentage-
with it.
What percentage of the building did it become non-warrantable, where you couldn't do traditional? And
Yeah, that's a good
non-warrantable
question.
is traditional financing. So you
Correct,
can't go
yep.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Most lenders, they won't lend because they see it risky, because one person owns too much of a majority. So if that person goes under, the association could go under. Therefore, it's too risky for most lenders.
Yep.
So you have to pretty much buy them cash, which limits your buyer pool, which brings down the value. Because there's less
or you get
buyers.
hard money. I mean, there's private money you can get, but a lot of folks don't have that. And I mean, in our market, it's uncommon. The percentage was 40%, I believe. Okay. 40% ownership. So, and it's the building specifically that I'm talking about. It's like we own, I mean, it's a blend of 2-bed, 1-bath and 1-bed, 1-bath. So as soon as we bought our second, we officially were any other seller within the building. It was a non-warrantable situation. But that's before we did that, I know. But I mean, we did it. We feel like we did it the right way. We weren't going to, because we realistically wanted to get it done quickly. So in a span of 2.5 years, we were able to explain the situation, tell everybody like, this is why we bought the second, and we're going to give you above what these guys are selling for across the street. I mean, down there, when you pull comps, we were giving them above what they would make on the open market. And then in one instance, we helped that person move and waived our buy side commission. So they got a pretty good deal out of everything. And it got us what we wanted. And so if you do things the right way, I mean, there's no bad blood or anything along those lines. We were able to get it done. It took a little bit more work that we didn't forecast. But ultimately, it worked out for everybody. So, yeah.
So, okay, you said you were planning on holding the decondoized place for a long time. 20, 30 years maybe.
Well, that's the plan now.
Forever.
Well, just to justify the amount of cash
that's like
we
so
put
far into
into
the future, like I can't picture what it's going to be like then. Anyways, is that kind of your strategy with most of your properties? Are you holding them on a real long term like that, or what's your hold strategy?
Case by case. I mean, we're always looking in similar, business plan, right? You kind of reevaluate annually. Some people do it quarterly or monthly as you look at your entire portfolio and you really try to fine tune. It's like trim the fat where you can. If this property you can optimize certain pieces of your portfolio. So instead of looking at, obviously look at what your entire portfolio is returning, but where can you eliminate certain problem situations, maybe properties that you're sinking more cash into, and it all speaks to that, system. Like, how are you tracking? Like, maybe this one's a cash cow, or maybe this one's like a garbage pit, basically, where you're just throwing money into it and burning it. The guy who lit the fire around your building, you're just throwing it into that ring of fire, and optimizing. So saying, it's time to figure out an exit plan for that. And it's, again, you're selling a little business. So if you're not running a profitable business, get rid of that business and upgrade to a better performing asset. Yep.
That's a nice way to dance around my direct question.
The question was hanging on to the property.
Though.
So our plan is now, but if we get a incredible, like, let's say somebody comes to us proactively, but we've worked so dang hard, it's not even on my radar to think about getting rid of that thing, because now we're fixing up the units, we're making them look nice, we're dabbling for the first time in rental arbitrage. We have a company that is subletting from us, and they are short-term renting it, which is really cool. And advantageous. I don't know if you guys have looked into that or anything along those lines.
So someone can essentially lease a place for $2,000 a month and then Airbnb it out, and they'll get $3,000 in Airbnb fees, let's say, and that's their spread. And without ever owning property, they can become landlords, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. And the value for a landlord was we get our rent, market rate, we're good, and it's truly passive at that point for us. They're turning over the unit. They're cleaning it. You're getting folks that are going to treat your property well. They came in, painted, carpeted. They did the works, and they're spending the cash to do that because they look at it they have a great business plan. So it's interesting. And so this is our first unit we're doing it, and everything that we've seen so far, it's like we're going to start converting more of these, and eventually, just again, geography and market opportunity. It's like where our neighborhood is, it's connected to everywhere in the city with the light rail being there. But it's fascinating.
Yeah. So what's the benefit for you besides just the, more guaranteed? Is it someone's fixing up the unit? Is it they're paying more? Is it
Yeah.
But renters don't clean their unit every week.
Well, yeah,
if you get
exactly. The cleaning, that's what tipped the scale for me was the move out cleans. Like you're spending a good chunk of change because they're really getting in there. Like these folks are cleaning. We did the first clean, and now they're going to go in and clean weekly or whenever their folks are in there. You're going to get more traffic in and out, but I mean, the way that they described it to us was, I mean, they're doing all the due diligence of vetting the tenants before they come. You hear the horror stories where people are like coming in and throwing ragers and stuff. Like they put in interesting technology. I don't know if you've heard of that technology where now it's a live feed of decibel levels back to the landlord. If you've ever done that, where if it goes above a certain limit, you get notified as a landlord. Like technology is fascinating.
Wow.
They're
so
putting,
it's not recording what's going on. It's just decibels.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's like really cool to hear. Like they're going to be managing that. I, as a landlord, like I'm further away than I was before, and I'm still making the same. I'm not sacrificing any margin. So now I'm even further away from that transaction. They're maintaining the property. They've put on all new locks, automatic locks within the property. Nice, and then we're in charge of, the capital stuff outside and landscaping still, and making sure that the common areas are clean. But outside of that, it's business as usual for us. And it's a relationship that it has to be mutually beneficial. So if they pay us rent, they're taking that risk up front for this year. They're locked into the year-long lease, but our term is only until 2021. We reevaluate. Like I'm going to be able to tell how much money are you making? Can we increase our rent and get a little bit more because this is really producing for you? Or they might look at maybe doing a 3-year term because they're producing above and beyond what they thought, right?
So what part of town, do you think this, so your property, Hiawatha, Light Rail, Mall of America, the airport, all of that.
Yeah.
What other parts of town do you think these guys, if you've talked to them, where are they looking? Where are they trying to? I got a couple properties. It sounds great.
I mean, if I go to their website, they're in your uptowns, they're in your northeast, the Loop. They're trying to find those high trafficked areas where tourists are going. Like that's who they're catering towards. Not always light rail specific. I just love the light rail because it, as a tourist, you come into town, you land at the airport, you take the light rail to the property, and you map out your week, like wherever you want to go. And as soon as in a couple of years, this whole thing will be built out where I could take it to St. Louis Park. I can go to downtown Hopkins, like these interesting areas around town. So Hopkins, like that's a prime area where it actually has it's a stop right in the middle of downtown, and you can bop out and you can find units over there that haven't appreciated quite yet. So I'm fascinated with that. And St. Paul, Lower Town is exploding, but is that tapped out? You don't know. So, I think that's where we'll try to be because that's just what we know. So we don't want to get too far off of that business plan. It's like if you ever have a business mentor and you start deviating away from the plan, your mentor is the first one to bring you back in and say like, no, stick to your dang plan. This is what we talked about. So,
and that's a really good way to put it is like, stick to what you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Steve, you've mentioned systems a lot in this podcast. What is your
I need to have a different word.
Well, you are a systems kind of guy. What are your favorite systems? What are you most proud of? What has served you best over the years? And maybe this is business, maybe this is personal, maybe what are some of those habits and stuff that keep you going?
Yeah.
And especially with a 10-month-old?
10-month-old.
Jeez.
So I am still early in that, like having a roadmap of like this, right? Your life system. I'm a huge, I finally have an accountability coach. I have, an insane productivity. It's a Darren Hardy deal. If you know of Darren Hardy, but he is just a business coach and he helps you map out your week. Like I have themes to each day of the week now. So instead of as an agent running around doing, or not even just a business owner, right? Doing 100 things every single day. Instead it is meeting Monday. It is, not Taco Tuesday, but Marketing Tuesday.
Podcast Wednesday.
Yes, Podcast Wednesday. It's actually mapping out my marketing plan is on Wednesdays. Thursday is like our agent interact or our client interaction. Friday is fine tuning like the financials of what we've been doing and going back to the books. And then Saturdays and Sundays are like, it's difficult as a agent to fully cut off, but Sundays are like ritual day of mapping out like clothes that I'm going to wear, food that we're going to eat, and then looking at the week ahead of what are those priorities for those weeks. And then Saturdays just go out and enjoy life and be with family, right? Like just get off the grid a little bit. And so that seemed a little choppy, but I'm still working on how those all get put together, because you have folks that are always going to try to grab time on your calendar, and being very, very conscientious of like, if that doesn't align with your key priorities for the week, the day, the month, being able to say no and doing that effectively is something that I'm still working on. But one of my goals moving forward
I think
is
you're
like
pretty
really
good at, man.
fine tuning.
Tough to get you here.
Yeah,
Glad to get you here.
Yeah, I said yes multiple times. And you guys were like, "Hey, Steve, we're pushing this out another few weeks." And I was like, "Come on." It was on a Monday before, and then we moved it to Wednesday. So
Mondays
I made an
are
exception
bad,
to be here.
Yeah, thank you for that.
No, this is great. This is fantastic.
Well, Steve, any last words of wisdom as we wrap up today for for our guests, maybe someone that's just starting out in this journey, or someone maybe that's been into it for a few years?
Be intentional. I think everything you do in life, have a reason behind what you're doing, and that's as simple as I can make it. Just be intentional, and then you interpret that however you like.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, cool. Steve, thanks again for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And this wraps up episode 4 of Tangible Assets.
Steve Gerten, Zen Lord Pro. Thank you.
Assets so tangible.